Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om Chintamanam Bhaktanam Kalpavrukshan Chakamadam Swaminam Tvam Raghuprema Teertham Vandekya Bhishtatam. Namaskar everyone. Today we'll be diving into the incredible life of Shri Raghuprema Teertha, a 19th century Hindu saint. This isn't just any story. It's a journey that takes us from immense worldly wealth all the way to profound spiritual enlightenment. A path that was paved with prophecy, unbelievable hardship, and tests of faith that seem almost superhuman. So here's how we're going to break down his life. We'll start with his birth and then follow him on his great search for truth across India. After that, we'll see the ultimate test that was put before him, the incredible grace that followed, and finally, his transformation into a true saint. But before we even get into the timeline of his life, let's start with the one core belief that really defined everything that he did. If the bimba moves, the pratibimba reciprocates and not otherwise. This quote right here says it all. He's talking about the bimba, the indweller, and the pratibimba, the jiva or the soul. He had this profound realization that he wasn't the one in control. The real power, the real movement comes from Devaru, the divine original. This idea of complete surrender is key to his entire story. The mantra he followed was Sarakshita Rakshati Yohigarbhé, meaning he who protects in the womb protects always. Alright, so let's start at the beginning. Our story kicks off way back in 1860 with the birth of a child named Srinivasa. His arrival was actually foretold, as his parents had a divine dream where they were told that their future son would be chosen for a special purpose to serve the Lord in a big way. Now, at first, his life seemed set. He was adopted by a rich, childless couple and lived a life of luxury. He was a genius too, just breezing through complex religious texts. But then, everything changed. His adoptive parents decided that they wanted a child of their own bloodline, and just like that, their beloved son became a servant, treated like a slave, and subjected to just horrible cruelty. But here's the amazing part. Through all that abuse, his faith, his devotion, it never broke. Well, as you can imagine, that experience taught him a pretty powerful lesson. He saw just how temporary and fickle worldly wealth and affection could be. He came to understand that materialism just feeds the ego and keeps you trapped in what is known as samsara, the endless cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. So he made a radical choice, and he walked away from it all. He performed penance for 40 days at the shrine of Pranadevaru in Yantrodharaka, where the deity was installed by Shri Vedavyasacharya. On the last day, he had a dream in which he was asked in the colloquial language, Kacheri ki ba kudre koduttene, which means, come to my office, I will give you a horse. Now, at first he was completely confused with his dream, but he started interpreting it as the office being the abode of the Almighty and the horse as a metaphor for the Guru, the vehicle that could carry him to his final destination, divine understanding. This vision was exactly the sign that he needed to keep on going. Srinivasa renounced everything and set off on a pilgrimage that would last for years, crisscrossing all of India. He had one single burning desire to find a true spiritual master, what is called an Adhyatma Guru, who could finally show him the way. This journey was absolutely insane, and it tested him in every way imaginable. For instance, in one town, he was staying at a house that was set on fire by a ghost, and he was only saved by a mysterious young boy who appeared out of nowhere. In Kashi, a holy city, all he found were so-called holy men who seemed more interested in his wallet than in enlightenment. His search was proving to be a real struggle, and at this point, he prayed to Kashinatha Sri Rudra to solve his burning desire. Once again, he received a dream where he was shown a people tree. He didn't understand what it meant, but it renewed his hope one more time. But the big question still hung in the air after all these years on the road, after all these disappointments. Where on earth could he find a true spiritual master? His journey finally led him to this tiny village called Hatti Belagal, and there he found the revered Saint Shri Aralikatti Narasimhacharya. The people tree is actually called Arali in Kannada, and immediately he remembered the dream that he had in Kashi, and he knew he had found his guru. However, finding him was one thing, Proving he was a worthy student was a whole different challenge, one that would push him to the absolute edge of human endurance. You see, finding the Guru wasn't the finish line, it was simply the beginning of the real trial. Now, Srinivasa had to prove himself to his new master, who came up with a test so incredibly difficult it seems almost impossible, a true crucible of faith. Okay, so here's what it was. The Guru set this challenge to 4 of his top disciples. The rules were simply brutal. First of all, no food for 9 straight days. Secondly, no sleep for 9 straight nights, all while doing back-breaking work around the ashrama from dawn until dusk. But here was the crazy part. If any of the rules were broken, even for a split second, the clock reset back to day 1. So, what do you think happened? Well, the other 3 disciples immediately started bargaining. One asked for just a little bit of food, another asked for an hour of sleep. But Srinivasa's response was completely different. And he simply said, "If you bestow your grace and give the order, I will take it up." He put the entire outcome, his very survival, completely in the hands of his Guru. And he did it. He passed this impossible test. Shri Narasimhacharya was so moved by this display of absolute faith that he was brought to tears, and he gave Srinivasa a profound blessing. From now on, whatever he said, the divine powers would make it happen. His words literally gained the power to shape reality. And so now, empowered with this incredible grace from his Guru, Srinivasa's life completely changed. He wasn't just a seeker anymore, he was now a channel for divine power. And pretty soon, stories of his miracles started spreading like wildfire. One of the first stories we hear is about a devotee whose wife had a severe heart condition. Doctors had looked at her and said it was completely inoperable, a death sentence. But the couple came to Srinivasacharya, followed his spiritual instructions, and she was completely healed. No surgery, no medicine. All the problems simply gone. Then, there's a story of a ghost named Bhanumati. Apparently, she had been trapped on earth for 600 years. She saw him and recognized Srinivasacharya as the saint who in a past life had actually promised that he would one day free her. And after she had served at his ashrama for a while, he fulfilled that ancient promise and finally released her spirit. And this last one really shows his power in action. During a big religious festival, some rivals paid off the hired cooks just to walk out, leaving 1,000 hungry guests with no food. The goal was to publicly humiliate him, but Srinivasa did not even flinch. He just walked into the kitchen by himself and cooked an entire feast for over 1,000 people, and the food was ready before anyone even realized there was a problem. But it wasn't just about miracles. He was also a brilliant teacher. He would guide people by explaining really complex philosophy, and in simple terms, he'd clarify the differences between major schools of thought like Dvaita and Advaita. So having passed every test you can imagine, having mastered himself and having served his community with these incredible abilities, Srinivasacharya's journey was now entering its final and most revered stage. He was divinely ordained by Sri Mukhyaprana to undertake a long period of fast with no food and no sleep. At the end of it, his body just shut down. He was completely paralyzed. He was conscious, but he couldn't even move a finger. And it was in that state of total, utter helplessness that he had his deepest realization. He had zero control, and it all came from a higher power. The jiva itself has no real activity. It appears active only because of the activity of the indweller, the bimba. In 1920, he took that final step and was formally initiated into sannyasa, the life of a renunciate monk fully embracing this path. And it was then that he was given the name that he is known by today, Shri Raghuprema Teertha. Even his final moments are described as something otherworldly. A doctor came to him, examine him, and was just stunned. His pulse was gone. His heartbeat had stopped. Yet there he was, talking normally and addressing a crowd of thousands of his followers, calling them out by name. It was like his consciousness had completely transcended the limits of his physical body. So, this story of a seeker's path from a powerless boy to a powerful saint really leaves us with a big question to chew on. What is the true nature of our own strength? And what could happen if we dare to let go of the illusion that we're the ones in control? Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om.